United States has begun pulling out its troops from war-ravaged Afghanistan. In fact, it was under the Trump regime, the US has entered into an agreement with the Taliban. And as per this agreement, the United States started pulling out its troops from May 1st. On June 2nd, the US has pulled out troops from its base, which was the very key place during its 20-year operation in Afghanistan. The Washington is expected to complete its pullout by September 11. By then, the US war in Afghanistan completes 20 years. President Biden has endorsed the Trump-era deal with Taliban. So as per this agreement, the United States will withdraw all its troops from Afghanistan. Well, let me recall your attention to the US war in Afghanistan. You will be remembering the day September 11th, 9/11, 2001, when Al-Qaeda led operations on the United States, the terror strike on the US World Trade Center. In response to the attack by Al-Qaeda, which had its basis in Afghanistan, Bush administration in the US has declared a war on Afghanistan. President Bush has explained to the people of America and people of the world that Taliban is refusing to hand over Osama bin Laden and other Al-Qaeda leaders, forcing the US to declare a war on Afghanistan. Thus the war on terror in Afghanistan began 20 years ago. But what is happening after 20 years? The US war seems to be futile. History is repeating itself with a vengeance. The United States has to broke a deal with the Taliban. It has entered into an agreement in Doha with Taliban. Surprisingly, the duly elected, democratically elected government in Afghanistan, which is backed by the West, had no role to play in the US-Taliban deal. So despite such a criticism from the ruling regime in Afghanistan, Washington was in a terrible hurry to enter into an agreement with Taliban. So it was absolutely unconcerned with the post-war Afghanistan. And the price of this deal is already seen in a very clear terms. So there are 407 districts in Afghanistan. Taliban had control of 73 out of these 407 districts before May 1, 2021, the day US started pulling out its troops. Today, within 2 months, even before the US completes its pullout, Taliban influence, Taliban control in Afghanistan has spread to 169 districts out of the 407 districts. The Wall Street Journal, the prominent American newspaper, quoting the US intelligence sources, predicts a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan within 6 months. Well, the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan will have a serious adverse far-reaching implications for this region, for the entire world. In fact, India is also equally concerned over the developments in Afghanistan, especially the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. Who has to be blamed for this? The United States has to be blamed for this futile war in Afghanistan for nearly 20 years. Surprisingly, the United States, when it entered into a deal with Afghanistan, there are essentially 4 concerns. These concerns include: A, violence in Afghanistan should stop. 2, the foreign troops in Afghanistan should go. 3, there should be an intra-Afghan dialogue or a peace talks leading to a political settlement. Then the D, or the 4th one, is, of course, the Afghan soil should not be used for any terror activities, especially Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So the US and Taliban had talks on these 4 things. Taliban agreed for the 3 things, stopping the violence in Afghanistan, entering into a political dialogue with all those concerned, all the stakeholders in Afghanistan, including the duly elected government in Afghanistan, and also ensuring that the Afghan soil will not be used by the terror outfits like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. In return, the United States agreed for a withdrawal of all the 12,000 troops from Afghanistan. So this was the agreement. But what is the result of the agreement? The United States, as per the agreed timetable, is withdrawing its troops, but the Taliban is not honoring the commitments which it had made in the Doha agreement. So the Taliban continues to indulge in violence, continues to indulge in attacks on civil society, attacks on Afghan troops, attacks on Afghan government installations. Taliban continues to occupy more and more territories in Afghanistan and refuses to hold any meaningful dialogue with the Afghan government. In fact, the Taliban have laid a precondition for talks that its prisoners should be released. The government in Kabul initially did not agree but asked to fall in line owing to the pressure from the United States. But however, the intra-Afghan dialogue has not taken off, the peace talks are frozen, and there is no imminent political settlement in Afghanistan. So even though there is no guarantee that this rabid reactionary force called Taliban, which is an embodiment of Islamic fundamentalism and terrorism, will disallow its soil once it comes under its control for the terror outfits, whether it is Al-Qaeda or ISIS. So while the Taliban dishonors all its commitments, the United States is pulling out its troops with a remarkable alacrity. So as a result, there are the observers of Afghan affairs expect three things to happen. There are three possibilities in the post-pull-out situation in Afghanistan. The first one is, well, there will be an intra-Afghan dialogue, the peace talks will succeed, and there perhaps may be a political settlement between the Afghanistan government, which is backed by the West, and the Taliban, and there will be some kind of power sharing, which would at least ensure peace for time being. Then this is the first possibility. But this possibility seems to be remote. If you look at the way Taliban are aggressively marching towards Kabul, the way the Taliban is taking control of more and more rural and hinterland districts, this possibility seems unlikely. Then the second possibility, well, the civil war will break out between Afghan government, which had the Western support till now, and the Taliban. We really do not know how will the West respond in the wake of a new civil war that will most likely ravage and plunder the war-ravaged nation called Afghanistan. So if this civil war continues, the Afghan government may perhaps retain hold in some of the cities, and hope so, even the capital city Kabul, and the Taliban will expand its influence beyond the 169 districts which it had already taken over. Then this possibility seems to be happening already. Taliban, as I already explained to you, Taliban had control of 73 out of the 407 districts prior to the US beginning its pull-out of its arms on May 1st. It has already doubled its influence to 169 districts. And this may perhaps even increase in future. So this is another possibility. Then the third and the final possibility is the worst situation may come. Taliban may take over Afghanistan completely, and the situation that existed prior to 2001 may repeat. Taliban may come into a firm control of Kabul. Well, if this happens, it will be a serious threat to the integrity and of this region, stability in this region, and also it has a very serious implication for India. Unfortunately, the manner in which United States is acting, the irresponsible deal with Taliban, and the remarkable alacrity with which Washington is willing to pull its troops out of Afghanistan clearly indicates that the worst is most expected to happen. Taliban may take over Afghanistan in 6 months, as Wall Street Journal, quoting American intelligence officials, predicts.